So, all right. So we were talking about the Welcome Center, and then we moved on to the AUR. But
Yeah,
so
which I'm gonna say it again. You touched on a very sensitive subject right here. Uh, I don't recommend people report
hey, I
bugs.
think you turned on Echo.
Oh, I didn't. Echo is. Oh, yep, you were right. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I just wanted to fix it because I'm like, we're already having audio issues on my man. This is a perfect Linux like episode.
Yeah.
Audio is going to shit. Like, but yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
so
Well, anyway,
the AUR.
anyway, the AUR. I'm gonna say it again. I don't recommend people report bugs directly with the AUR before they go to the upstream GitHub reporting issues. This is case by case because some packages it's because of the PKG build that they're broken, not because upstream they're broken. They have to report bugs in both areas.
Yeah.
Uh, this is what I recommend because TopGrade, the tool, a very famous tool I use in XeroLinux,
Mhm.
uh, because I love it. I don't use Docker. I don't use those very niche things that would cause me that would force me not to use TopGrade. I just use Flatpaks and packages either from the AUR or my repositories or Arch. So I don't have any issues running TopGrade, but it's not the default. I learned one thing in XeroLinux
Wait, for
is
those who
never
don't for those who don't know what that tool is, could you explain it? Upgrade.
TopGrade. Yeah, TopGrade is a tool that updates everything, absolutely everything that you have, every using every single package manager you have on your system, apps, Flatpaks, uh, Git repositories, Docker images, Nix packages, firmwares like SSD firmwares, NVMe firmwares, and all that. It updates everything under the sun. It's a very neat tool, but I know it's not ideal for people who don't want to update every single Git repository and Docker images because that can become taxing, and maybe they don't want to update, get the latest commits from some repositories.
No.
So, but that's why the top grade people included flags, a config file where you can tell it uh, which to ignore and not update. But
No.
people completely forget that such a config file. And I don't expect new to Linux users to know to want to mess with a config file.
No.
That's why it's not the default. And I was going to say, I learned one thing while creating XeroLinux is never make anything default. When you make something default, it's like you're forcing people
Nope.
with your own vision. My own vision is different than everybody else's. Every single distro does the same thing. They force people with their vision instead of offering all these as options, as optional features. That's why the Welcome Center was born.
Yep.
It's because anything I want to do to Zero Linux will be added to the Welcome Center. Like for example, we were talking the other day. Why not replace Grub with Refine? I was like, I'm not going to force it on users. Maybe users don't want to use uh, Refine. I was thinking of including the option in the tool, but someone on the Calamares contributors group told me it's not as easy as you think because you have to pull each and every user's UUID. You cannot know the user UUID because you have to create the refined config file
Oh,
yourself. You
specific to the
have
machine.
specific to their
Yeah.
machine because it needs to detect partitions and stuff, and I need to do the stubs stuff manually. So I was like, yeah, it's too complicated. I'm not going to do that. I will make a video, however. I mentioned that on yesterday's live stream. I'm going to work with someone on making a video on how to switch from Grub on EFI systems, of course, not BIOS systems,
Yeah.
uh, uh, from Grub to Refined, because Refined doesn't have all of Grub's issues. The reason I thought of switching to Refined was because Grub, especially recently, Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but because this is very Zero Linux centric, uh, Grub lately has had a lot of issues. And now with uh, I forgot what it was called. Brody made a video about it. His latest video was about it. It's like the handshake between Grub and there was a handoff kind of thing uh, that's now deprecated. But you have to set up a kernel flag to yes in order for it to keep working.
Oh, that's
But the
right. I
Arch team,
heard about that. The new kernel breaks like compatibility with Grub. Like,
yeah, not compatibility with Grub. Here's the situation: when you install, let's say, Ubuntu and Arch Linux, I'm not gonna say Zero Linux specifically because it's Arch.
yeah,
If you boot using Ubuntu's Grub, you won't be able to boot into Arch. You'll be able to only boot into Ubuntu.
yeah.
But
Oh,
if
well,
you
I guess you're right because that would be a conflict with OS Prober or like whatever the fuck it
not
is.
OS Prober, it's the kernel flag because Ubuntu keeps it at yes to keep the deprecated thing around, but Arch sets it to no.
Yeah, and that's
So
because
if
they're
you boot
rolling
you,
release. They take the
yeah,
newest
because
shit.
it's not their fault. This is how they do it.
Yeah,
How they do things. We cannot blame them. But if Arch sets its a flag to no, you can if you use Arch's Grub, you can boot either Ubuntu or Arch. But if you use Ubuntu's Grub, because they kept the flag around to yes, you can only boot Ubuntu. You cannot boot into Arch. You need to make the Arch Grub take over
Mhm.
to be able to boot into either OS. But currently, for example, people have Arch, they install Ubuntu, and they have Ubuntu's Grub take over. So now, whenever you boot your machine, it's Ubuntu's Grub that you see, not Arch's.
Yep.
So you won't be able to boot into Arch anymore.
Yeah.
So that's broken.
Yeah. And
So
like there's a lot of people out there who've got like 4 or 5 like
oh yeah,
distros. And
oh yeah.
dude, like in that point, like trying to find the right grub like
Yeah,
in your BIOS menu is like
this
no,
is
good luck.
this is why the desync situation between different distros upstream creates a lot of problems. The Ubuntu's, the OpenSUSE's, the Fedora people, they want to keep this as a yes, although it has been deprecated for months or I don't know how long. They want to keep it around, whereas Arch they followed the stream where it led to the deprecation of that thing, and they followed suit.
Yeah.
So they set the kernel parameter to no. Natural. It's a natural progression of things. But why everyone doesn't want to follow because I don't know who they are. They're for what some reason they're more important than others. No, they don't. They want to keep it around. Why remove it? Well, now you know why you need to remove it because you need other people to be able to boot into their other OSs.
Well,
But
actually,
it's a
you brought up a good point earlier that like I don't want to forget about. You said like pushing your how difficult is it as a distro like maintainer, distro creator to balance having a vision for your distro and not pushing that vision on because that's one of the very few like Linux is one of the very few realms where if you want there's so many options out there that if you want to make something it needs to stand out like it needs to have a vision but then also that vision can't be pushed onto like the whole interesting thing about like Ubuntu is like they have a clear vision for the distro and like where it's headed and like what they want out of it and how they want people to use it and then at the same time pretty much everyone in the Ubuntu community is like, please God, fucking stop. Like stop pushing snaps on us. Like, how difficult is that to like play the play the balance between?
let me start by saying you passed. You passed the exam. You made the questions interesting, like I alluded to.
Uh huh.
No one asked that question, so this is the very first time I have to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, it's an important question too, because like
It
if we're
is.
being
It
honest,
is.
there is a lot. Like, actually, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, but um, like I've had a really big problem with a lot of people making Arch distros before, because uh, for one, there's a lot of them, and two,
Yeah.
a lot of the people who do make them, they have this is this is gonna maybe upset you, but I highly doubt it. There's a lot of people who make Arch distros for new users, like Manjaro, and there's like there's just nothing that really makes them targeted towards new users, like at all. Like,
Well, let's start by the first part of the question.
mhm,
How hard is it to not push my vision? Not very hard because my vision is not that huge. I don't. I'm not like other distros where I want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm just using the right options available to me. Uh, and I am a simple Linux user. I'm as simple as the regular user because, like, modifying Calamares by adding modules, it's like
yeah,
maybe a couple of lines.
yeah. You're
People,
not doing rocket science.
it's
Sorry.
not about not doing rocket science. They're very simple to implement. Yes, I find it hard because uh, people don't understand this. Is I'm zero. Let's first attack what XeroLinux at the core. XeroLinux is just the Relang folder from Arch ISO, which is installed on everybody's Arch system.
Hmm.
It's part of Arch. It's what comes with Arch when you install it. There's a folder called Relang in there uh, that I learned how to modify thanks to Eric from ArcoLinux.
Hmm.
Uh, I
Great guy.
just
Great guy.
great guy. Based my configuration on one of his. So I saw what he modified. I removed all the packages from packages x86-64. That's part of Relang. That decides what packages end up on the ISO. Uh, I removed his packages and started building my own packages, hosting on my own GitHub repositories. And XeroLinux is one package. This is what people don't understand. XeroLinux is the config.config folder and .local folder package. It's a package that has those two folders that replaces the default one by KDE,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's all XeroLinux is. It's just one package with .config and .local that replaces the default one from KDE. That's it. But it's not as simple as just saying it's one package because I had to create said configuration.
Mhm. Well,
So
and also one thing that I will say is there's much more about Zero Linux that is like there is something to be said for the way that you have configured things. Like,
consistently and there sorry not consistently consistency about the consistency, everything is
yes,
so consistent.
yes,
But we'll target that a little bit because there's something that will change in the June release. I will mention it,
okay,
but it's related to consistency. uh, but how hard is it? I already have it the way I want it for me personally. uh, Sometimes, yes, there are things I want to do for me that I would think that I have to weigh the decisions
mhm,
before I implement. I do this by asking the community. I just ask on my server. I don't ask as much as I state. I state this is what I'm thinking on doing, or this is what I'm doing on XeroLinux currently. I'm very transparent.
mhm,
People love that about me, and they told me about it. Is how open I am about every single step I do in XeroLinux. Like I tell them on the server, I'm adding the dock. I'm adding those icons to the dock. I am changing the icons here, the icons there. Like yesterday on my live stream, I made them know uh, that lay-in will be out as a theme because it hasn't been maintained in so long.
Yeah.
uh, especially the GTK part of it. And here's where I'm going to talk a little bit about the consistency of XeroLinux. Because I'm not a person that likes to mix and match. Like you will never catch me using lay-in KDE with Maya GTK or vice versa.
I love that.
If
Yeah.
I cannot find all the parts of that theme that I fall in love with to complete the look and to stay consistent, I will not use it. Like lay-in GTK theme, I even reported an issue with GTK4 because, as we know, where
Yeah.
libet Vita and GTK4 are causing GTK themes to
Real
break.
fun. Real fun. Yeah.
Exactly. And theme developers, a lot of them, and this is sad to see, really sad to see,
A lot of them are
that
just quit.
instead
Like,
they quitting.
yeah,
They're quitting.
they're just done. And it's like, I I will say I totally understand that. I totally understand that. It's
Yeah,
got
because it's libet Vita has gotten to a certain point. It's like applying this hack here, this hack there, this whatever, just to keep it working. It's not worth their time.
yeah,
And
especially when all you want to do is make a color scheme. Like,
yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, themes are nothing but color schemes.
exactly.
Uh, and with KDE getting to a point where we can do that manually in the system settings,
Mhm.
uh, it's awesome. But the problem with that is I cannot create a package to apply these things myself, and I don't know where to go. I don't know. I'm not a developer, so when I see a lot of lines of code and I have ADHD, I really sink into depression. uh, I cannot handle too much code. So they choose to completely quit. So what I do in XeroLinux is hunt the earth for a complete theme or the interwebs, uh, for a theme that is complete. Sweet is complete. The developer of Sweet is working a lot pretty hard on that theme, but I don't like it myself. I used to love it because if you look at the very early releases of Zero Linux, I even had, I don't know if you know the plasmoid, the Panon plasmoid. It's the music bars that play.
Hmm.
It's a widget that you can. It's a plasmoid that you can add to the desktop. It's a widget that you can add to the desktop, and whenever you have audio playing and just multicolored bars,
Yeah.
instead of having it like Kava in a terminal. Uh, this one is floating. It's a floating widget. I added them to the KDE panel on top. So you had the clock in the center. You got Panon on the left and Panon on the right. And whenever you had audio and the system resource use, I never looked at it because in the early stages, yes, I was an up and comer. Didn't think outside the box. Like I was creating looks and things that were using so much resources. Like on a cold boot, it was using like 3 gigs on a cold boot,
Good
and I wasn't
lord.
looking at it. I wasn't looking at it because I had 32 gigs of RAM. So I was like, I have 32 gigs of RAM,
Yep.
so I can use 3 gigs. I never thought about the people out there.
Yeah.
So as I grew, I took responsibility. I matured, and I started thinking about other people. Like yesterday, somebody suggested, "Why don't you completely drop BIOS support, legacy support?" I was like, "Too soon,
Yeah.
too soon,
Yeah.
too soon."
It's the
Not
same.
everybody.
It's the same as the people like just drop 32-bit support. It's like
Yeah,
people use Steam, you know, like it's kind of a thing.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so I cannot drop support for that. I'm gonna get an angry mob at me, and it's not about the angry mob. It's like Zero Linux doesn't force anything on anyone. That's the whole idea of Zero Linux. Do not ever. You have an idea? Check with the community. Step one. Step two. If they agree, ask the second part of the question. Do you want me to include it by default or as an option in the tool?
yeah. And
The
I think
majority
I was actually
optional.
going to say I think that shines through your actual welcome center cuz there's
Yeah,
there's like on Zero Linux, it's not like there's no packages included, but there's only the packages that make
that-
sense. I mean, obviously there's there's the stuff for theming and all of that, but besides that, for when it comes to actual like desktop programs, there's not a lot of cruft put on there.
Uh,
But you in the welcome center, you have the option to dive in. Like
yeah,
everything's available.
that
Go
and
for it.
and I spend months curating these lists. People think that those lists that I created took a day. No, they took me months because I had to test them, see if they work, what issues they're gonna cause, what dependencies they have, and will the dependencies break anything, or will they be are there, because some of them I wanted to include in the tool, but I couldn't because some of their dependencies were on the AUR. So I was like, nah,
Yeah.
nah, man, I'm not gonna force AUR packages on the users. If I am, I will build those packages and host them on my own repository, saving the new to Linux users, because people forget new to Linux users hate the terminal.
Yeah. And well,
They
and
forget.
actually, we do actually need to come to the new user experience in the terminal with XeroLinux, because that is something I do have to say. For one, the theming really helps, like with the terminal experience. Like I was blown away at how like XeroLinux, like you've done some customizations with running like Pac-Man and stuff in the terminal. It is I wouldn't say it's not like it's overly verbose, but you've done stuff with the verbosity that
Yeah.
is like it's very clear what's going on. Like if you get an error, like there is no way you don't notice it. Like it
Yeah.
clearly states error. Like it,
Oh, yeah. And you will notice that sometimes you would get like 30 pages worth of error message. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit too verbose, but I just enabled the verbose thing by default.
well,
It's not up to me.
I think that's a good thing though, because like the it a lot of times it's the mentality of like let's not show too much in the terminal so we don't scare away new users. But then you have new users like Linus from Linus Tech
Yeah,
Tips, who
yeah.
like if you don't have that verbosity there, he's just gonna press enter like he does, or like with the
No,
yes button on Windows. Like
if it has Linux on it, he's gonna break it.
yeah,
Even if he moves in front of it, it's gonna break.
but even in his defense, like okay, if you're not extremely clear with what's about to happen or like what's going on in the terminal, most Windows users are used to just pressing yes. So,
Yeah.
like, anything can happen with those kind of users. Anything. Eh,
Yeah, you mentioned something when you were installing the drivers. Uh, uh, I am very, very upfront in my messages. I took that from Eric.
yeah.
Thanks to Eric, I copy him in a lot of things. We're very identical in the way of our way of thinking. The only difference between me and him is he's very busy. He's very all over the place. I'm in one place.
Well,
Uh,
and I mean, I've got to cut in here and say this. One of the big things that separates you two apart is the website, which, like, look, I love the guy, but his website is fucking atrocious. It is terrible. And, like, and I'm not saying that as, like, as a diss against him, because, like, it's clear that he spends way more time on the actual operating system than he ever does on the website, which I think to an extent is a good thing. But also, your website is phenomenal, man. Like for one,
did you notice? Did you notice that it's consistent with the color scheme of
yes,
XeroLinux?
yes, it like the theming matches. For one, the animations on the website are really good. Like they're really good. And then
Yeah.
there's also the thing of like you are very like you don't have a
I
warning
don't.
message when you go to download it, but there is like it's like a public service announcement. Like,
Yeah.
and I really do like there's a lot of distros that should have that and don't, which
Yeah.
is
I am very upfront telling the users this is what this is what you're getting yourselves into, hardware wise. It's all about the hardware, especially with laptops. Laptops annoy the crap out of me because of the hybrid graphics situation of them.
yeah.
No two laptops will ever work with the same configuration, although they have NVIDIA, Intel,
Yep.
but no NVIDIA, Intel will be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So not one solution will work. Sometimes the laptops are identical,
Mm-hmm.
using the same GPU model, like 1060 Ti, 1050 Ti. They're both using Intel, let's say HD 4000, and plus 1050 Ti. They're both using the same combination of GPUs, but on one of them, it's Optimus QT that works, that will save the day. On the other, it's NV Control or NVIDIA Prime.
Yeah.
So you cannot. There is no perfect solution.
No.
And that's the reason why I removed complete I'm not responsible for those things. I let the people know, if you have a laptop with a hybrid graphics, I'm out.
Yeah. Like
You
you're on your
you
own. Like, and
you're
that
on your own.
and that is something that I do have to, like, people should commend you for, because there's a lot of distros that just don't acknowledge it. Like,
No,
they don't treat it like they
you
treat.
ask for support. You wait for somebody with identical configuration to help you out. But at the end of the day, like I said, he might have the identical configuration, but for him, he will tell you what worked for him. It might not work for you, although you have the identical hardware. But since the chips are different and the way they're implemented on your specific model are different, which requires a complete different solution.
No.
So, and the worst part of it is when you go to any community where, let's say, this user posted on the Arch community, God forbid, but let's
Yeah.
hypothetically speaking, he posted on the Arch community, he's gonna get maybe 100 replies, and each person with a different solution, and he's gonna test. At the end of the day, he's gonna break the system because he tested so many things. It's gonna mess up everything, and he's gonna be in limbo, not knowing who to blame.
Yeah.
So this is the annoying part of Linux, is the hybrid graphic situation in laptops. This needs to have a single or a single set of solutions, and that 100% work.
The
But
really sad
unfortunately,
part is AMD's come to the market now, and they, like, because I had a
oh,
laptop with an AMD APU and a dedicated AMD card, and bro, like, you think the Intel and NVIDIA side is hard? Like, when it comes to those new AMD laptop, like, combo laptops, there ain't fucking shit on them. Like, because nobody has them. Like, they're pretty rare. Like, I mean, they're definitely a thing, but like,
Steam Deck is a thing.
yeah, but the thing about the Steam Deck, which makes it makes it different, is it's just an APU, so it's actually
And not
easier.
any APU. It's a custom APU for Valve,
Yeah,
not one you will find in any store straight up, or in any laptop.
yeah.
It's customized to the pin for the
Well,
even the programming and everything. Because when you check NeoFetch on the Steam Deck, it will tell you custom APU,
yep.
custom GPU. It doesn't know what they exactly are because they're not on the database or anywhere. It's just a custom hardware for the Steam Deck. But again, on my website, it's a tool. The website is a tool. You either use it correctly or you don't. That's why I
Well,
use a public service announcement to let the people know what they're getting themselves into.
that is one of the things that I do like about not just the website but XeroLinux in general, is there is there's a not as big of a focus on making sure that people know how to correctly use it. Like, you take into account that people are probably going to mess up or probably not know what to do. And that is something that, like, even in Manjaro, like, is a big problem. Like, Manjaro overlooks quite a bit. Like,
Yeah.
they assume knowledge where I don't understand how difficult that concept is for, like, Manjaro is a much bigger team than you are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and they don't, like, there's a lot of focus in areas that don't make sense, whereas you have phenomenal focus on like ensuring that people know what they're getting into. Like, hey, like most likely you're going to run into an issue if you're running this type of configuration. Like, there's
Yeah.
uh
There's a FAQ section on the website that I cloned and put in the tool.
oh,
So people, because I know I even take into consideration that not everyone reads the
yep,
website.
yep, and they won't even
Because
know it until they get in. Like,
exactly, because I used to be one of them.
yeah,
I used to be one of them. If
we
the
all
text
were.
was
We
too,
all were at
yeah,
one point.
if the text is too long, I'm gonna be too lazy and I'm gonna say, oh, it's too long. I'm not gonna read.
Yep.
So I even take that into consideration. So I cloned the FAQ section of the website and I put it in the tool. And someone brought it up. He was like, what if the FAQ becomes too big? I'm like, no, it's always going to be top 10 questions. They might change which 10 depending on the situation. But so far, we didn't encounter any major issues that I didn't already take care of in my FAQ. So some of the posts on threads on the forum, because those answers, you click the button, it takes you to a thread on the forum. Some of the threads on the forum were written by contributors, not by me.
Mm-hmm.
So the others that I wrote, I didn't come up with the solutions. I just copy pasted from different places and I compiled them as a single thread instead of making the user hunt different parts themselves. I just took those different parts, created a single answer in a single thread. Especially the hybrid graphics, that was a contribution by someone on Discord. He went above and beyond to write a whole complicated guide on how to one of the solutions, not all, because he cannot write
Yeah.
because if he writes all the solutions, it will become a 300-page book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do take into considerations new to Linux users, especially what this sentence. I was proud of myself when I came up with it. Don't go. What did I say? I said don't go into deeper waters until you learn how to swim.
Yeah.
Along those lines. So test it in a VM, see if it's your thing. If you can understand, if you will be able to keep up with all the changes in, because I do say that it's based on Arch. It's got a lot of moving parts. Arch has a lot of moving parts, being a bleeding edge distro or up to date distro to the latest commit. So because of that, I tell the users on the website to pay attention to that. Don't go to deeper waters unless you know how to swim, because if you don't know how to swim, you're gonna drown.
Yeah.
And it's easy to drown in Arch Linux.
It really
It
is.
doesn't matter how beautiful the coat of paint you added on top of it. It's still Arch at the base.
Yeah.
So XeroLinux is 98% of the time controlled by whatever comes upstream. I do not control anything that comes upstream. There are just a few packages that I built from the AUR that I cannot test for myself. They were requested, but I cannot test because they were made for a certain type of hardware or for a certain type of configuration or whatever. I cannot test them. I tell the users, okay, they're on the repo, test them. If they break your system, I will remove them from the repository.
No.
And people can request whatever they want to from the AUR for me to build, as long as it is not OBS, please,
Yeah.
or a kernel,
Yeah.
please. I'm not going to spend that time.
Well, and there's also the thing of like you kind of have to, like, when it comes to those AUR packages, like if people want them, you kind of just have to let the people who want them try them, because it's like
Yeah,
especially when it comes to AUR packages, normally a lot of the times like they're either for specific hardware or they're for like obscure programs that, like, like most people don't run and they need special shit, or like they're just
exactly.
very weird.
Like, for example, people, case in point, Wi-Fi drive.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi drivers, the AUR is littered with them.
Yep.
Absolutely littered. There's over 500 drivers on there.
And probably four of them are maintained.
For, more along like two or three.
Yeah.
But They don't need to be. Let's be clear. Some drivers, if they do work, the
Yeah, you don't
maintainers
have to touch
did
them.
their job. Yeah, they did their job. But I tell the users, and this is where I got a lot of hate when I said those words. And you're gonna laugh when you hear them. When I said Linux is has a lot of similarities to Windows. When I said those words, people came at me. They were like, "How dare you compare Linux to Windows?" I'm like, Linux is an operating system, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So GNU Linux, sorry, GNU/Linux
Yeah.
is an operating system, kind of.
Stallman
Windows
just came down
is.
from the sky and patted you on the back. He was like, "Good job." He was like, "And by the way, we've changed to saying GNU plus Linux," and then floated back up.
But they're both operating systems. So, okay, one common point. Second common point. In a lot of situations, not all of them, but in a lot of situations, you will have to install the operating system, hunt for the drivers, install the drivers.
Yeah.
This is very important because Linux cannot combine all the drivers that exist into a thing, because it will end up being like 30 gigabytes in
Yeah.
size.
I love it when I love it when, because I've definitely heard people say like Linux should just include every driver. It would make it better. And I'm like, you have no
What
idea what you're asking for, like at all.
the that's yeah, it's wrong on so many levels, because what if I have a configuration where half the drivers are not or 90% of the drivers are not needed. It's bloat sitting in my system.
Yeah. Well,
So
shit, if you're
they're not
running,
running. They're not running.
yeah,
They're just sitting, occupying disk space.
well, even at its current size, like the current Linux kernel, if you're like, unless you have some like extremely weird, like very monstrous PC, you already have probably over 50 to 100 drivers that are not like that are in that kernel and are not being used.
Exactly.
And like if we included every single one, dude, there would be thousands thousands of drivers on your system that never get touched and will never get touched. Like,
Like for example, XeroLinux. I'm working on a method right now. I'm working with a developer. He's teaching me.
mhm,
If you install XeroLinux, because the installer is offline, and that's the best decision I've ever made. Because before I was like Arco Linux, giving choices of packages to net install, to install packages during the
the
OS
install.
install.
Yeah.
That caused a lot of problems with people who couldn't connect to Wi-Fi. I have a lot of users from China. They cannot connect to GitHub.
Yeah.
They cannot connect to a lot of to the servers where I have my packages, or they cannot connect to the Arch repositories even.
Mhm,
So anyway, the when you install XeroLinux, you will end up with AMD Ucode and Intel Ucode.
mhm.
I didn't figure out a way yet to make Calamares remove the one that you don't need anymore. You'll have to uninstall the one you don't need yourself. Because the reason they're both in, because I cannot install only the AMD one and have you, if you have an Intel, install the Intel one yourself. So I install both of them. The inactive one will remain. It's occupying 700 kilobytes.
Yeah.
So it's not that big a deal. But where it becomes a problem is when you include the kernel contains a lot of drivers that we don't use, like you said.
Mhm.
They have the kernel contains a drivers for 386 machines, like
Yeah.
from the early 80s.
Yeah.
We don't need those drivers. So we need to, if you want to do it, I'm talking to whichever user who wants to do it. If you want to build your own kernel and remove everything you don't need from it, be my guest. But trust me, you're gonna grow a white beard, become Santa Claus before you can finish with that.
Oh, trust me.
Uh,
As
th-
someone who has modified their kernel plenty of times, modifying your kernel and removing a lot of drivers and then having it still boot after, it takes a long time before you get that working right.
that's
Like,
why I how to say it, I
tip
put
your
my
hat.
hat down.
Yeah.
I tip my hat down to all the kernel developers out there, because it's not easy, especially TKG, because XeroLinux uses their NVIDIA drivers as opposed to the regular NVIDIA drivers from the Arch
Much
repositories.
improved. Much improved.
They just apply a couple of patches because TKG, they're gaming oriented.
Yeah.
So I chose their two drivers, and this is important. Recently, XeroLinux changed something, a very small thing, but it's big at the same time. The proprietary NVIDIA driver installer in the tool now changed. It used to include the latest NVIDIA drivers by TKG, the 470 ones, the 390, the multiple versions.
No.
Not anymore. Now I only maintain the latest and the 470 drivers. The third option now is pulling down TKG script and allowing you to build whatever driver you want, pulling in the latest. But the only caveat with that, that's a big caveat, I had to weigh it. That goes back to the question when you ask how hard it is. That comes with a big caveat that I did consider, but I cannot maintain a million drivers versions of the same driver. So the caveat is users have to keep running that script to check if updates were pushed to build the latest driver versions of the drivers. Like if they decided to build the 390 drivers, they have to run the script again, see if the version changed or not.
Yeah.
So this is not for the beginner users, but I cannot keep maintaining 100 versions of the driver. So it was a question of what do I do in this situation? What do I do in this trip? But if the driver works,
Just
whatever version of the driver works, they don't need to update.
yeah.
That's it. And especially legacy drivers, I don't think they will get updated that often.
Yeah.
That's why I made it only available for the. That's why the decision went into the realm, the part of keeping the script in, because legacy drivers, let's be honest, they don't get updated very often.
Yeah.
So for the latest drivers, the 470 and the latest driver, those are constantly being maintained because a lot of users have 600 series, 700 series, or to the latest drivers. So I am one of them. I have 3 desktops right here. 2 of them are using legacy six. One is using the 710, and the other one is the 650 Ti.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm keeping them.
Yeah.
But yeah, decisions are very hard, especially when it comes to hardware support. This is not something we can, especially for distros that are maintained by a single person like me. It cannot be hardware drivers cannot be maintained. So I either tell the users, okay, this is what you need to do and point the way, or include them myself. So I did what I could myself. The rest is up to the user, and I let it be known on the website. That's why I'm using the website as a very important tool to get the message along. And whenever people ask, I'm very polite. I tell them, please kindly read the website, and I set the correct expectations. A lot of distros don't set the correct expectations. They just expect users to know everything to know about Linux. They don't think too much out the box. No, me, I know because I was there and I'm still there.
Yeah.
I'm just using configurations from different people, pulling them, studying them, taking what I need from them, and putting them together. And like the tool uses scripts that I pulled from Eric, I pulled from Endeavor OS, I pulled, and I'm
You're taking
I'm going to use it.
the best parts from everywhere else and
Yeah, the
studying them.
best
So
parts, and then combining them and giving them my own flair.
yeah.
Like if you notice in my scripts, when you run them via my tool, there's always a nice decorated message at the top, letting the users know what they're getting themselves into. And whenever they're installing, there's a line that says installing this, time to reboot. And like you said before, I used to force reboot users' machines when they applied something. Somebody brought it to my attention. They said, what if users are in the middle of doing something? They decided to change, use your tool, do something, and they want to continue working. You cannot force reboot users' machine. So now it's a message that as politely tells the users it's time to reboot to apply the changes.
Yeah.
So it's constructive criticism. And you told me about issues you ran into while installing the drivers. There was a package that's no longer on the Arch repositories, which we run into very often with Arch.
Yeah.
They have packages, and suddenly one day you wake up, it's no longer there. No, not on the AUR, not on Arch repositories. They decided to, oh, because and that package was a 32-bit version of a main package,
Yeah.
libLC.
Well,
So
that's one of the things that really cracks me up about Arch. It's like most you would think most software people would understand, like if you're gonna axe something, like that's fine, but like could you, I don't know, this might be an insane thought, but like give somebody a little bit of heads up, like and it's gonna be axed, like that'd be fucking nice.
that's the worst part of Arch. They don't let you know. They're not very good at like if you're subscribed to their RSS feed. Why are you subscribed? They're not very good
There's
at posting
there's
anything.
nothing there. Like,
When the Grub issue happened back in September, it took them what, 4-5 days to get the message out there? Oh, by the way, Grub is broken.
it's like it's like thanks, man. It's been a week. Like, come on. Like,
oh my god. But this is where another thing that makes XeroLinux very popular among the masses is they get support directly from the creator.
yeah.
Not and none of the distros I've, with the exception of Endeavor OS, KOS, and what's it called, the other one, CashOS. You
I
get
haven't heard
support
of the
direct.
last two.
CashOS and KOS. Their KOS is an independent spin, Arch spin with KDE, but they maintain their KDE packages. They don't
Oh,
rely on upstream.
that's
They
interesting.
they do their thing their own way. But the person who's responsible for Calamares over there is amazing. It's a lady, and oh my god, she does so good work with Calamares. The UI now with for KOS, the welcome and all the things on the left,
Yeah.
they're now at the bottom,
Oh,
and they're
actually,
tabbed.
I like
This
that.
is it's really nice. She does a great work, but uh, with the exception of these guys that I know of, the big corporate distros, you don't get support directly from the people who work on, like, for example, I'm going to give you an example, very simple example, desktop environment example. you know you get
Okay.
any
Yeah.
support from the people, they shun you away, they push you
No,
away, and they you
if you get support from GNOME, it's them telling you to please politely fuck off. Like that's your
exactly.
support.
That's a big example. So that's what keeps XeroLinux very popular, is because when I receive a message on the forums or on Discord, I immediately reply. I have this thing. It's an itch. Like if I get a message, if I don't reply immediately, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Even if it's a family member or a friend or whoever, I treat the people who use XeroLinux the same as my friends and my family members. I
Well,
need to reply them immediately.
look, you probably do a better job than most people would with their own family or friends. Cause I gotta be honest, like for anybody who's watching and doesn't know this, Steve doesn't have reliable internet. As long as
Yeah,
he has internet and you message him, you're gonna get an answer. Like you may have to wait 2 minutes. Like, or maybe he's taking a shit and you gotta wait 5-10 minutes. Like, you're gonna get an answer. Like pretty damn quickly too. Like that.
like when you reported the issues, I pushed as soon as I got my power back. I pushed an update to the tool, removing that missing package.
Hmm,
And you didn't only and by reporting this issue, I saw that the same package was with the NVIDIA proprietary drivers as well. I was like, why didn't anyone report that earlier? If
yeah,
you don't report the problem, it's not going to get fixed.
yeah,
Come on, guys, report something. You got my GitHub, you got me on Discord. Come on, let me know about the issues. If it's an issue with a package I created, it's gonna get fixed straight up. But if it's a problem with a package that's hosted by Arch,
I
Good
mean,
luck.
pretty much the only thing you can do is axe it. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
No, but this is what I need users to do. Don't report it to me to report it to them, who will report back to me, who will report back to you. Cut me from the middle. I'm not the man in the middle. Go directly to, okay, you're having an issue with Pipewire. Go to the Pipewire GitHub, report it there. They're going to ask you what distro you're using. Just say Arch. Don't say XeroLinux, because XeroLinux is Arch at the end of the day. And here's another thing I need to clarify. I do not configure system parts at all. I use bone stock, like Pipewire, bone stock. I don't have my own.
Okay. Now I get what you're saying.
When it comes to drivers, when it comes to
Packages and stuff.
system related configurations, like low level system configurations, I leave them bone stock. I don't configure Grub. I just apply a theme. I don't have a custom Grub configuration. It's just pointing to the theme directory. That's it. I don't use custom configuration for the modem manager or a network manager, or I don't configure Pipewire. I don't configure anything. They're all bone stock. The only things I configure are things that are required to be configured to keep the look consistent. Like I configure latte, I configure KDE plasmoids, I configure KWin, I configure, and people don't know this, but Bismuth has been part of XeroLinux for the longest time. If you want tiling, don't use KDE styling, please. For the love of God, don't use it. It's not yet. It's like Windows, but you cannot. Even on Windows, you can save your own layouts, but on this one, you can't.
Yeah.
So if you spend 3 hours configuring your own layout the way you want and you reboot, bye-bye.
Have fun.
Have fun doing it all over again. So use Bismuth, although it's kind of not receiving a lot of love lately. It hasn't been maintained in like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
But I don't think it needs to. It works the way it is. So it's part of XeroLinux. Use it. If you want tiling on KDE, it's there. Just turn it on. Again, I don't force anything on the users. So it's there, but turned off. I even have KWin effects, like the burn my windows. I love those. I use them. That's why they're included by default on XeroLinux, but they're turned off because if some people hated wobbly windows, they're definitely gonna hate those.
Yeah.
But they give you various effects like the old CRT shutdown, and the pixelated from when you start a new game in the old classic Doom, the pixelated.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
You got different effects. I love those. I use the Doom one myself, but they're there, but not enabled. So if you want to enable them, there's one thing I did enable because I wish I use it on the Steam Deck, and I'm gonna tell you something about that little plugin
Mhm.
that does marvels on the Steam Deck. It does marvels on the desktop, but even more on the Steam Deck. It's something called Autocomposer. What does that do? It doesn't compose emails. No, it kills the compositor whenever you full screen
Ooh.
an application. It's enabled by default because when you launch a game and kill the KWin, basically on KDE, when you kill it, you're killing all the effects and everything that uses memory in the background, giving the game everything you got.
Yep.
So you get better performance. Do that on the Steam Deck. I saw a gain of 6 FPS in some games. Others 10 FPS, others 2 FPS. It depends on the game.
Yeah.
But you gain performance in games when you kill the compositor in the background. I cannot keep it killed because I will lose all the niceties that are part of XeroLinux, but it's a nice plugin.
Yeah.
It's an amazing plugin. So this is one of the very few plugins I keep enabled by default. And another thing I did to make XeroLinux feel faster than other KDE implementations, I killed Baloo. Baloo is a search indexer for KDE.
Okay.
If you keep it running in the background, especially on HDDs, not SSDs, but especially on
Oh,
HDDs, it's gonna
oh,
wear them out.
I didn't even think about that. That's so true. Holy shit.
Yeah, and it keeps running in the background, using up valuable resources, especially for low end laptops. I took lower end laptops into consideration. So I thought to myself, what can I disable? And I need to thank Gamer King as well. He's another fellow Lebanese. He's an awesome kid. He's
Mm,
17 years old. He's awesome. He loves XeroLinux to such an extent that whenever he finds something that I can implement that makes XeroLinux experience better, he tells me about it immediately, and he nags about it. He doesn't only tell me; he nags me to do it, and it's awesome because I have ADHD. If I'm not nagged enough, I'm not gonna do it.
no.
So under pressure, I do marvels. So he pressures me until I do it in the end. He figured out there's so many services that default KDE runs in the background that are unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So all
actually
these things,
been one of the biggest things that has been talked about in KDE. Like, it's not being talked about here lately, but like a few years ago, like I heard about that all the time. Was people like, because people would find some of the I can't remember off the top of my head which one I'm thinking about, but there was one service. I can't remember what it did, but there was one service everybody was talking about it on this one forum. And like it did pretty much like it ate like about 250 300 megabytes of RAM, and it literally did nothing. Like, unless you had a
yeah,
very specific piece of hardware, it did like nothing.
exactly. This is what the Gamer Gang did. He went to the services in System Monitor, and he started studying each and every service, picking at it, disabling it on his own machine, disabling it, seeing if it breaks anything and whatever. And we slimmed it down to a cold boot of 600 megabytes for XeroLinux in its
Nice.
current state. That's all thanks to Gamer King. I cannot thank him enough because I'm not patient enough to pick at every service.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Well, and you
uh,
probably have
rec-
other stuff that needs to be taken care of.
yeah, but yeah, that's what makes XeroLinux very good is because I am very nitpicky, and if it's not consistent, especially looks wise, I have this OCD. If it's not consistent, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother.
Which,
Like like the website is consistent with the distro. The distro is consistent all over the place, with a few exceptions. There's a recent review of XeroLinux that I saw. He mentioned a few inconsistencies in the look where some packages were using libadwaita dark.
huh.
This is not because I couldn't theme it. It's because the developer of Layin GTK dropped Layin GTK and it hasn't been maintained in a year. So it's not
Oh,
compatible with GTK4 applications. Those
yeah.
GTK4 applications are gonna fall back because I have in the configuration file, in the GTK configuration file, to always keep dark. Don't use light theme.
Yeah.
So and I have an override which I wrote myself. I did the research on the internet. I saw how to do it. I implemented it in Calamares during the install, but it will apply an override. So all Flatpaks, GTK Flatpaks, will either use lay-in GTK when they can. If not, it's always libadwaita dark. So, but it's you're never going to encounter, with very few exceptions, like Audacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Audacity is unthemable no matter
Yes.
what you do.
Yes. That's not your
But
fault. There's no way of fixing that bitch. Like,
yeah, that bitch is a bitch. But I made sure that everything is consistent. And a lot of people come to me and they say, dude, we love the consistency of XeroLinux. We have never encountered a single
well,
distro that is that
you
consistent.
you have made KDE like a premium experience. Like, because
Because I love it.
KDE
Because
is
I
one of those
love it.
ones where vanilla bone stock KDE, it's not bad, but it's also not great either. Like,
Yeah.
it's good. Like,
I'll give you an example. Breeze theme that Nicolo keeps boasting about. It's a great theme. Don't get me wrong, but it's got so many SVGs in there that it applies to your system. It's 200 megabytes.
Yeah.
That theme alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
laying all in all its glory, combine the SDDM, combine the GTK theme, combine everything about it, combine it all together. It's barely 8 to 10 megabytes.
Yeah.
That's why I chose
I was
that.
actually gonna guess. Like I was guessing in my head that it was 15 megabytes. That's what I was guessing.
But I love it because I love the purple color scheme.
Yeah.
I used to be a big proponent of black and red. I was like Sith Lord kind of black and red. But all of a sudden, when something happened, clicked in my head, was you know how you one day you sleep, you love zucchini, and you ate zucchini all your life and you love zucchini, and one day you wake up, you eat zucchini and you cannot stand it.
Yeah.
This is what happened to me with my shift. I still like black and red, but it's so far back now. It's purple, pink, and blue.
Yeah.
It's the and you can see this color combination in my thumbnails on YouTube. It's
I've always loved purple and blue, and that is something about XeroLinux. Like, dude, if you're into
it's
purple and blue, like, it's gonna be a great fucking time. Like the
and I'll give you a very small example about how nitpicky I am. How long do you think it takes me to choose the default wallpaper for an upcoming release of Zero? An hour, 2 hours?
I'm gonna
What do
guess
you
a
think?
day. I'm gonna guess like a full day.
Well, you're not far off, but you are far off. It takes me 10 days to figure out what
Damn.
I'll explain to whoever's watching, whoever will watch this video, why. Because if the if latte dock doesn't isn't centered to the wallpaper, like if there are elements in the wallpaper that are off center, and there's not an element in the wallpaper that is centered off center, that pisses me off. And if the color scheme in that wallpaper is too far off, it contains too much of a mixture of colors that are away from the colors I like, because I'm gonna keep using the icon pack I'm using right now. Uh, if it doesn't go with the icon pack, the wallpaper will not be used. If I cannot put my logo in a certain position in the wallpaper to make it keep it looking good, I'm not going to use that wallpaper. So it takes me a day to find the wallpaper, then another day to use it, and compare it to the position of latte dock, to the dock. Then another day to work on my logo and position it, see if it works with the wallpaper overall. Another day to add maybe a few color modifications to the wallpaper to make it suit. Another day, uh, and when I say 10 days, it's because we don't get full day power.
Yeah.
That's why. That's not
Yeah.
because the work takes that long. It's because I get only 6 hours of power a day now, because the generator mafia decided to piss on it.
Yeah.
But so during those 6 hours, I have battery power. And you compile it, and adds up to 10 days. Like now, I'm trying to work on a slide for Calamaris, for the upcoming Calamaris next week, because there's a typo in the current one. It's XeroLinux with an S instead of an X.
Yeah.
So I was like, might as well change the slide. So I was working on the slide. I worked on that thing for 4 hours, and I'm still not happy. So I am very nitpicky, and
Yeah.
if it's not consistent, please don't ask me to use it. Like some people are telling me use a sweet KDE theme with whatever icon pack, or whatever GTK theme. If no, if a theme doesn't have an SDDM theme, a GTK theme, a KDE theme, an Ororae theme, that Ororae is the window decoration. Uh, and I need to use it with lightly. I don't use Kevantum anymore. I moved away from Kevantum. If you notice in XeroLinux, only the sidebar of Dolphin is transparent and blurry, not the whole thing. because I'm even nitpicky about opening tabs. Because if you use Kbantum, when you open multiple tabs in Dolphin, they don't show up as tabs; they just show text. For each tab, a different text to describe the tab, but no strokes
Yeah.
around each tab to
Delineate.
uh,
Yeah.
delineate each tab one from the other.
Yeah.
So that's annoying to me. With Lightly, each tab has a stroke around it.
That is one thing that shines through with XeroLinux is an attention to detail.
Yeah,
And
I
so we're coming up to we're just over an hour, and I'm about to have to leave anyway.
okay.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to anybody who's considering trying out XeroLinux?
I will say this: if you have ideas on how to make XeroLinux better without forcing anything on everyone else, and that I can add to the welcome center, feel free to let me know. And my final word will be XeroLinux is open to community spins. If you don't like KDE and would love to have a version of XeroLinux with Hyperland, for example, uh, and we're gonna in my next patron meetup will be with Buxry, the creator of Hyperland. So if you want Hyperland, for example, in XeroLinux, come to me, talk to me. I will show you the ropes. I will give you access to clone, fork, build your own distro and your own spin. And if it's good enough, here's the best part. And I don't know why I keep forgetting to mention this. Uh, if it's good enough and you maintain it after 1 year, you will unlock something big. After maintaining it for a year, you will be given permission to even monetize it, whichever way you want. You can ask for donations, you can put it on your own Patreon, you can do whatever you want. You will have it will become yours,
And it's like an
uh,
official spin. Like
an official spin that you can monetize, you can do whatever you want with. But you will have to maintain it for a minimum of a year before I give you permission to do that. Because if you maintain it for a week and then create the spin and then decide to leave
it
and
happens all
throw
the
it,
time. Like all
yeah,
the time.
that's why I'm putting those requirements,
Stipulations. Yeah.
stipulations, if you want. Yeah, because you cannot create a spin and throw it on me and expect me to provide support to users, because I don't like. It's not my thing. Window managers are not my thing. But if you want to unlock this achievement, you can, but you have to maintain it for at least a year. Show me that you're serious about it, and I will consider you as an official spin of XeroLinux, and I will help you provide help, especially for things that are XeroLinux related, not window manager related or the spin related.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. If you want to know more, the thread is on my forums. You can read over that, go over that, and come to me, people. We're open. It's XeroLinux is not a closed source thing,
No.
and I need one other thing, if you permit me.
Yeah.
It's for related to Zero G,
Yeah.
the GNOME edition of XeroLinux. Don't be afraid that because it's behind a donation wall that I am doing something wrong. The code is out there, and it will literally take you 5 minutes to build, 5 to 10 minutes to build, depending on your machine. But the only caveat is you have to be on Arch, not an Arch spin, an Arch system to be able to build it. And I can guide you on how to do it, no problem. Just ask me. If you don't want to donate, I don't. I recommend you build it, because that way you're gonna learn the ins and outs of Arch Linux. So I am here to help. I'm an open book. Whenever I have power, I will. We're talking about electric power, not power as in
Yeah.
Superman. No, when I have power, when the lights are on, I will help you any and whichever way you want. Just come to me, and I'm here.
And speaking on that, his all of the XeroLinux links and everything will be down in the description. So yeah, I get
Thank you, Zaini, for this. You asked beautiful questions. You have passed you surpassed my expectations.
well,
So
thank you.
thank you very much, and we'll see you on Matt's podcast on Saturday.
Yes. So for anyone who doesn't know who Matt is, which if you're watching my channel, you don't know who Matt is. That's very surprising. But the Linux Cast on YouTube, we do a podcast well, we do it on Saturdays now. Well,
Yeah.
I guess depending on your time zone, it might be a little bit different. But yeah, so go check out his channel and uh, all of XeroLinux and XeroLinux Steve's channel. All that stuff will be down in the description. And
One thing I forgot to say
mhm,
is for the project to survive, we need as many donations as we can to keep the lights on. Not for me to
party.
go get drunk or anything, go party. It's to keep the lights on, or if you want something in return, buy our merch. We have a merch store now. I know Josh got the mug. He
Uh huh.
showed it as a screenshot. So we have mugs, T-shirts. Uh, I cannot buy the merch to show it off on stream because it will cost me triple the price
Yeah.
because I'm in Lebanon, unfortunately. But yeah, we got beanies, hoodies, you name it, we got it.
The
So
hat is what I'm looking forward to. I'm definitely gonna get the
yeah,
hat.
the hat. My brother bought like three. So yeah, support us by buying our merch. Get something in return. So we need your support to keep on going because if we don't get a lot of support, the project will stagnate.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say die because it's my own baby. I'm not gonna kill it,
yeah,
but it's gonna stagnate.
yeah. But it's hard. It's hard to work when you can't afford shit. Like
Yeah,
it
I don't
helps.
the necessity power to turn on my computer to work
Yeah,
on the project.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I think
anyway,
that's
thank you, Zany.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think we hit a perfect spot to end off on, and I hope everyone who's watching has a great one and enjoys checking out Zero Linux. See you guys.